the episode of the Underrated and Overlooked podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Najeh, along with Craig, here to talk about the latest in football. It's been a busy couple of weeks, obviously with recruiting, obviously with college football, the trailer coming out. We'll talk about that, and then we'll conclude with some NFL with the reaction to release. So, Craig, before we start, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling so much better than last Tuesday when my phone was broken and I got an email mid-show and it was like my phone was in the hospital. They were like, "We have it in stable condition, but if you come by soon, you might be able to have it back." I'm like freaking out. So I'm good now. Last
Good.
Tuesday, man, that was one of the roughest days of the year.
I remember because you left twice actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a crazy day.
heck no.
That was a crazy day. But man, so obviously how was Friday for you and everything? Were you able to get to a game?
I was not.
Okay. What did you hear? What stuck out to you? I know obviously a lot of people were posting their clips, a lot of players tagged me and stuff, tagged you and stuff. What is the latest you hearing from just some of the spring games?
Well, one of the ones I was really interested in was the Warner Robins, and that's because they got a transfer quarterback once again this year. That was from North Murray. If you guys remember, Judson Petty, the receiver that got an opportunity to go to Georgia Tech, his quarterback transferred to Warner Robins, but unfortunately, their spring game got canceled because of weather, I suppose. So it's funny, that was one of them that I was really interested in. Um, some of the other ones, there were a lot of inter squad scrimmages in terms of a head to head. Perry and Jones County, I heard that one was pretty lively. Uh, I know Perry's going to be legit, but you just look at the region Perry's going to be in this year. It's going to be a whole different beast for them. Uh, Jones County, they had a pretty inconsistent season last year, but they're always a team that can beat anyone. So that was a good scrimmage to check out. I thought with the Walton East Spalding, I thought the Walton defense showed that they matched up pretty well. They lost obviously a ton on offense, but same with defense. Lost pretty much their whole defensive line, some key pieces from the secondary, but that was a good sign for me that in the situations where East Paulding could have gotten in front or maybe come away with the win, they had some good goal line stands, some turnovers. So their defense kind of looked like that Clemson defense in their game. Offense didn't look good, but defense did.
That's what I heard about Walton too. I heard that defensively it didn't look like you guys missed too much of a beat, which is crazy because you guys had so many weapons last year on that defensive side of the ball with Wendell Gregory, obviously Ben Broad, White Simon going both sides. Obviously, Ashton Woods is another piece. So I mean, that's a good telltale sign from what the buzz I'm hearing and people that were there were saying about Walton.
Yeah, and I think the numbers are really up right now for Walton. Coach Brenner's done such a good job, and it's no knock on some of the coaches that were there before him. But if you look across Cobb County, there's some teams that once the popularity of lacrosse, obviously baseball, once that took off, it's really hard to get players to pretty much just commit to football. And yeah, it's good to have multi-sport athletes, but some of these guys, like on the offensive line, you really have to take them like from their freshman year. If you want to have a solid starter up front, you have to take them when they're young and make them become a 280-pound offensive lineman. So I think Walton's numbers have gone up, which is good. I think it was 2000 or 2013. They only had 11 seniors on their entire team. So much bigger classes. They'll be able to replace last year where it felt like there were 40 seniors. Um, but some other rumblings I heard Pope actually looked good in their scrimmage.
Really?
That's Sean O'Sullivan has really turned that around. He went back to his alma mater, and he really was the one that put Centennial back on the map. They were struggling really bad. I think they're in the right place now. They're going to have another good year, but he gets Centennial back into a competitive place, and then takes on a project for a Pope team that was pretty much in the bottom of Cobb County in terms of points allowed. That was a team where I think the year before Coach Sullivan got there, that would have been Hecklinski's junior year. I think he was 15 of 15 in the first half for 5 touchdowns. So they literally just didn't have a chance. But no, they looked pretty solid. He simplified things. So I think that's another team to watch out for. And it's funny. So I actually brought this up because I wanted to make a point. this was last year's Cobb County cover, okay? Got 2 Cal players, obviously Ashton Woods, Heklinski. Who's going to be like those top guys in Cobb County this year? And I think we're going to see some Wheeler guys on the front, maybe even Sprayberry. But I think that was something I tried to point out last year. Those middle of the pack Cobb County teams really started to find success. Osborne, obviously Harrison's going to be right back in it. But I think teams like Sprayberry, teams like Wheeler, I think they have more star power this year than they have.
I agree. Speaking to your point, Craig, I think you'll see like maybe a guy like Jaden Duckett at quarterback spot for Sprayberry. Obviously, got Jordan Edmonds, another heavily recruited guy at the DB position. Could possibly see Marcus Romaine of Wheeler at quarterback, committed to Northwestern. That might be another good pick as well. And also, you think probably Tyreek Green or Contarius Mooney Gibson at running back spot / safety. That's Tyreek Green. So I think any one of those guys as your top 4, maybe returning talent coming back, I could see any of those guys making the cover.
Yeah, and Tyreek's only going to be a junior, right?
Yeah, only a junior.
So he's one of the best in that 2026 class. Same with, you said, Jordan Edmonds, cornerback from Sprayberry. Yes, he's actually the highest rated in Cobb County heading into this season in terms of the 2026. So we'll see who gets that cover, but I think last year's kind of no-brainer. Kellen, Walton were favorites just with Bryce Clavin, all that talent. But I think we're going to see some of these other teams emerge. And hearing that Pope had a good spring scrimmage, I think that's a good start for them.
No doubt. And then speaking of, I just wanted to react to some of the spring games. Obviously, you talked about a couple. We talked about Walton already, but I did want to highlight the Milton win, 29-0. I won't say what I want to say. I was going to say BDA, but we're not going to go there. But Milton win, 29-0. Well, what was your thoughts? I mean, I'll tell you what the buzz I was hearing about a couple of guys that went out there. Basically was saying like they didn't really air the ball out. Peachtree Ridge didn't. They were going with a lot of flats. They weren't really throwing the ball deep, which is kind of surprising. You got Darnell Kelly, think you would go deeper, use your weapons, but just straight out the gate, just like Milton wasn't playing no games. And, besides, unless Barney was really on CJ Wiley, he was basically tearing up the defense, which is surprising because when I went to see him in the secondary, it looked really good, but he had his way 2 touchdowns in that game, Craig. So what's just your thoughts on that result and maybe a little bit of that buzz?
I think it's interesting because what happened last offseason, they got creamed by Kel in the spring scrimmage, and then a month later, they were absolutely dominating everyone in the 7-on-7. I think they are going to have another great summer with the 7-on-7s. That's kind of what they're tailor-made for, but I think they were just kind of scared of Milton, didn't want to go out there and try to take the win. Just kind of went out there, went through the motions.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think they were trying to be vanilla, not show too much of what they had going on. Milton, obviously, they do have a lot of pressure on them, but, obviously, weapons galore, great coaching staff, Coach Carletta, obviously Coach Reeves. Obviously, all the position coaches are really good. But, yeah, I think that's what it was. I won't say they were scared. I just think they went through the motions, I think. And they just was like, well, this is another game. So, we're not going to do too much. Let's just see where we're at. So I agree with you, Craig. I think that's what it was. I'll tell you about a quick result. I went to Craig before we talk about maybe some of the standouts. I went to Jonesboro Lovejoy. Obviously, that was Thursday. Enjoyed going there. Definitely got some good talent. Obviously, I think their secondary is really good with Cortez Redding, Jamar Owens, and John Tavius Wyman. All those guys can fly. Have a lot of speed on both ends. Secondary-wise, they'll be pretty good. Running back to keep an eye on, Lucius Murray. Obviously, I might show the clips. You guys can see it as well. But he caught my eye, how he was toting to run the ball. The coach also said he was one of the standouts from the spring. Defensively, Jeremiah Tickett, obviously, Jeremiah Collier as well. So they got some good pieces. Lovejoy, obviously, with Corey Orr, heavily recruited guy. And obviously, got some really good pieces on the defensive line. And then a really good receiver that you should watch. So Caleb Carson be one to watch. He'll probably play both ways for them. But real quick, Craig, to get your reaction, this was the clip I ended up catching when I was there, but I thought the running back looks really good. So you can hang your hat. You obviously got those weapons offensively, but when you got a guy you can get the ball to and he's going to run hard for you, I mean, that's what you want to see. So we will show you the clip 1 second and then just get Craig's reaction. All right, so
quickness is just incredible. I think with Jonesboro, I'll just say this. I think they are, if you were to measure up who are the hungriest programs in the state right now, I think Jonesboro is. They really want to prove something. We heard it throughout last season. And I mean, that effort in the spring game, I think they're going to be exciting. And I think they are that premier program in Clayton County.
Much respect to you, Craig. Obviously, I love how you worded that. Hungriest teams, and couldn't agree more. I think that was the perfect term you used to describe them. And I definitely think so. Obviously, they took their lumps last year, but they're gonna have a lot of young talent, 2026 class, and they got a lot of good experience as their sophomores. Now they're going to be the leaders. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do in Clayco. But they're definitely going to be one of the premier teams.
Yeah, that Glen Academy playoff game last year that they had was unbelievable. I don't think they're going to be scared. We're talking even at the Hall of Fame forgot his name, but he covers Clayton County, and he was telling us they had a really strong sophomore class last year. I think it's just about coming together, but yeah, they are super motivated. They want people to come out and see them. They want to see what people they want people to see what they're working with, and I think they're going to hit the ground running.
No doubt. Couple quick updates. I just want to highlight a couple players real quick from the spring. I obviously got to give a shout out to J.R. Harris. Watched a little bit of his clips, and man, he looked good. Looks like he's going to take that big step forward sophomore year. I thought he had an incredible freshman year for Central Carrollton, leading to their best season since 1984. I think he's going to be back for some more with him, along with Jonas Walton. But I like the way he looks, man. I've seen him a couple times this summer, or spring/summer, and I think he's going to have a strong season for them. Then I got to give a shout out to Villa Rica quarterback Will Wallace, 13-16, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, 112 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns as well on the ground, so 4 total touchdowns in the game. Last but not least, looks like going to be the potential starter for them. Obviously, we have him in Corky Kell Craig, and that's what it looks like. Chris Miller will finally get his opportunity with Kennesaw Mountain. He had a pretty good game, 9 for 12, 217 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Yes, it was a very disappointing year for them last season, but you look at the statewide polls for class of 2026, they've got coming back those big-time receiver recruits, big-time guys in the secondary. So I think they'll be much more productive offensively.
They should be. I mean, you got Nayland Scott. Looks like you have, pretty good quarterback as well. So it should be pretty good for them. Last thing, and I'll obviously throw it back to Craig, but recruiting season is heating up. So a couple guys have been announcing when they're going to commit, and also their top schools. So Osiris Gilbert from obviously Peachtree Ridge, he announced his top 7 of Florida State, Duke, UConn, Indiana, Georgia, USF, and then Liberty. And then Cortez Smith, Austin offensive lineman for the Parkview Panthers. He announced his top 4, expected to commit July 20th. That is South Carolina, Georgia, Miami, Georgia Tech. Obviously, something to watch for because his former teammate Jordan Floyd, who played on the offensive line with for years, is at Georgia Tech. So that's something to watch in Georgia. It's another one, in-state school, prominent, known for producing offensive line guys. Obviously, Broderick Jones, go to Amarius Mims. So many guys that they produce on that line. And then last but not least, Travis Smith has officially nailed it down. He was at the top 8 early in the spring. Towards the end of spring going into the summer, he's at his top 4 and will announce his decision on July 13th between Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, and then Tennessee.
Very nice.
Yes, sir.
Okay, a couple. Jaden Daniels from Commerce. I see he's starting to pick up his first batch of D1. I think he's one of the most exciting players in the state. He's going to do it all this year. Then Brody McWhorter, his recruiting still heating up, and he just picked up a Boston College offer today, 2 hours ago.
He's been blowing up.
Yes, he has. And he's working with Ron Veal, the quarterback coach. That is Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields.
Best in the country.
Yes, everyone. So he was out there yesterday throwing to his receivers. And that is one of the most intriguing teams to see this year. What are they going to look like without Sokovie, without Devin? I think they have their tight end coming back. He was a pretty big kid. He really broke out in that Cartersville game. I just think Brody, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him this year, but they're trying to let the offense run through him. It's going to be all about that arm talent. We know he's mobile also. He proved that he can orchestrate those 2-minute drives and get his team down the field and make the right decisions. I think he can do it.
No doubt. Speaking to your point, Craig, a player to watch as well offensively, got hurt last year as a freshman, but got varsity time. Isaac Culp from Cass. He'll probably be one of those leading guys at receiver next year for them. Young guy, just coming in, but he'll be a rising sophomore. So expect a big year out of him too, Craig.
For Cass, yep.
Yes, sir. Isaac Holt.
Lots of new pieces.
No doubt about it.
I saw someone else. Gosh, I'm gonna have to look it up. But one of our guys that we've been tracking got a TCU offer. I'm trying to see who that was.
One of your boys been blowing up too, Craig. Saquon Smith from Roswell just picked up a Kansas offer, and also I think Pittsburgh recently he's got OVs set up for June to both of those programs. Don't know if you knew that.
Did not.
Yes, sir. He's been blowing up as well.
Interesting. But yeah, let's get into another. We're talking about Corky a little bit, but I want to pull up this clip right here. Yeah, from the Brookwood. Here's the thing. The quarterback, CJ Franklin, had a good spring. There's definitely a quarterback competition. I think Brookwood's going to be solid on both sides of the ball. But their running game, and look at these two plays. First, this one, Wildcat. Look at all these broken tackles. That's what we saw last year from them. So that's just a good job of plowing your way into the end zone. And then obviously this next clip. Hayden Tyson going into his sophomore season. This guy has a chance to be one of the best running backs. Too easy with that much size.
Moving like that.
Week 1, I mean, Rennie Curran was telling us about him because he's obviously a Brookwood guy.
It's legit.
So, I mean, it's going to be key. I mean, the key to Brookwood's success these next few years is going to be Braden Tyson.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Obviously, like you said, they're having a QB battle, so it'll be interesting to see who's going to come out on top there. Obviously, Braden Tyson is going to lead them on offense, so he kind of goes. Brookwood goes kind of as he goes. What I do want to see, Craig, is obviously after replacing so much talent, right? Not having obviously defense anymore, Callie Gober, not having offensively Lee Niles anymore. Who's going to be that extra playmaker besides Braden Tyson? That's what I want to find out with Brookwood. Is it by committee? Is it 3 guys, 4 guys to step in and relieve that? Or will it be one main guy with everybody else's little weapons coming in? I think that's the biggest question I have. Obviously, I have not seen them, so I don't know. But I think going in, that's one of my bigger questions is who else will they have on offense, the playmaker besides him?
100%. Looks like they will have more depth at the running back position. But, yeah, if they can't find a receiver that can at least win his battles and try to stretch the field, it's just going to be teams loading the box and trying to force them into third down. So they got to find someone in that receiving core. I have a feeling they might take some guys from the secondary, be able to use that, but they got to have a primary.
No doubt about it. 100% agree. But before we move on, Craig, was there any other big high school news or recruiting news or anything you've seen that caught your eye from this past week before we move to college?
Nope. Let's move on.
All right. So that's all we got, guys. We're going to move to our next segment, bring Hayden on. So give us just a moment. Let us connect real quick. For y'all. Sorry about that. All right, guys. So we are back. We're going to bring Hayden on. So he actually went to a spring game actually on Thursday. It was Kell versus McEachern. So we can get his intel on that, him being at the game. Obviously, latest with Georgia. They had a big scavenger hunt weekend this past week. And obviously, the latest with recruits. Some have been announcing Georgia in the top 4, top 5s as 2025 recruiting season heats up. And without further ado, we'll bring him on. All right. What's going on, Hayden? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are y'all?
Doing good. Can't complain, man. How was your weekend?
It was really good. It was just relaxed.
I'm sure it must have been nice. It's been definitely a busy couple of weeks / months here. So let's get your intel, Hayden, a little bit on the latest around kind of Kell McEachern. You said some pretty good things, obviously off air. But what was your kind of insight and intel going there? What was your biggest takeaways?
Probably the biggest takeaway is just there's three really good running backs on these teams. Dorian Campbell, sometimes I really like to see running backs in person before I really make a determination on how good they can be. You really saw why he's getting offers from every major program. He scored 2 touchdowns. One of them was he took a pitch on the outside and found the corner of the defense and ran in for probably about 10 yards out. The other he took it between the tackles, really just fought his way into the end zone on a hard-nosed traditional run. And I just think he's a very versatile back. He has good size. He's 6 foot, 190. He has everything you want in a back end. He's only a junior. He's going to grow more going into this season and next season. And I think he's a really exciting prospect. Right now, I think he's only a 3-star. I think he'll rise up into that 4-star conversation as his career goes on. And then at Kel, their true backup, Mooney Gibson, he had some really good runs. He had the 1 touchdown run of the game, and then he had another, which was, I think the touchdown run was 10 yards or so. He turned the corner of the defense. Really did a really good job behind an interior offensive line, especially that's a little undersized. And then he had another huge run that was, I think 20 or 30 yards. That it really just shows how good he is, especially as someone that's only going into a sophomore season. I think, he's really going to grow as the next 2-3 years goes on, and I think he's a exciting prospect. And then Tyreek Green, probably a safety at the next level, but he didn't have the runs that Gibson had, but he had a really good pass, and then on the defensive side of the ball, he had one of the biggest I've seen in a long time. He came all the way across the field within 5 yards of the goal line and just laid out one of McEachern's running backs.
No doubt. Talk a little bit about, obviously we know previous years that Kel's been a little bit smaller, obviously on their interior the offensive line, but talk a little bit about what you've been seeing out of the interiors on both sides of the ball for both teams.
On the offensive line for McEachern, as normal, is big. Paul Bowling, the Troy commit, is really good. He was playing, I believe, guard on Thursday. He just really good, really physical offensive lineman. Then Jeremiah Boykin, number 77 for McEachern, is a really big is a 6'5" offensive lineman. I would be surprised if he's not playing D1 football in a year. He held a really good defensive lineman, Bryce Robinson from Kel, at times he was doing nothing for that Kel defense. He played really well. And then on Kel's side, the interior is still a little undersized, I would say, but compared to years past, their 2 tackles are 6'3", 6'4". They're really starting to grow, and they're starting to develop that talent a lot better.
Certainly. And yeah, that's what we saw last year when they played Parkview. It's a tough matchup for them, 7A, but their offensive line got pretty manhandled. But then after that, I think that was probably the best offensive season Kel had. But it was also kind of an interesting one with Bryce not being there for most of the season. So I feel like they're going to be fine offensively. But what do you think of just this year's schedule, some of these matchups, playing North Atlanta week 1? That is a pretty tough matchup just with North Atlanta's speed and then their size up front.
Yeah, I think that's a really tough schedule. I think another team on that schedule is Blessed Trinity, which you would know better than me on this, Craig. Is that in region? Are they in the same region this year?
Yes.
So I think that might be the biggest game of their entire schedule, just because that's a game that very well may determine this region. And Blessed Trinity is, they have 2 or 3 wide receivers and tight ends that are 6'3", 6'4". They have a good sized offensive line. I think that's going to be interesting on how Kel matches up with that.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's their region opener. And They're going to play Columbia right before it. I mean, that's another tough one. They're going to go 2 Lowndes. I can't imagine Kel's put Lowndes on their schedule in recent seasons. They're going to have Alpharetta week 2. We'll obviously see Alpharetta. They're going to come off that Houston County game. They're going to be ready week 2. Sequoia, they're going to play Wheeler. So, I mean, they'll be battle tested. And then closing it out at Cambridge. What do you think the overall mentality is for this Kel team?
I think they're going to hang their hat on their physicality. The quarterback room is still a big question. Neither one had a particularly great game against McEachern. They both struggled at times in Caleb Narcy and Landon Garrettson. I think when it comes to this team, they're going to hang their hat on that run game. Those two running backs are maybe the best duo in the state. But I think the quarterback position will determine how far this team can go and if they can achieve what they want to achieve in this coming season, which is at the very least a quarterfinal or semifinal appearance.
And before we get to McEachern a little more, was there a guy that stood out where you felt like he was probably just the best player on the field overall, or maybe the biggest mismatch?
I think it was Tyreek Green. I think it's rare that you see a safety that is that physical. I mean, he plays like a linebacker, but has the speed and size of a safety. I mean, I know I talked about it earlier, but that hit in the red zone on that McEachern running back was impressive because he came from the completely other side of the field and was the only person there to stop a running back that was having a wide open run to the end zone. And then on the other side, he made a great catch out of the backfield to probably their second big. I mean, I think it was a 30-plus yard catch. It was probably the second biggest play Kel had all night. And he came out of the backfield. He created good separation as a running back. And I just think he's going to be that player on this Kel team that really excels and really shows and really is the biggest mismatch on both sides of the ball.
No, that's a great take. And then imagine just with Kel's run game, putting Tyreek in that receiver role in the slot. I think that's just going to be something that Coach May is going to have to do this year.
Yeah, and then the other thing is there's some really big wide receivers / tight ends. Brown Rouse, he didn't. I'm not even sure he got a target, but he created good separation. He plays a tight end role there, but he plays like a wide receiver. Has the size of a tight end, but is more of a fluid athlete than a lot of high school wide receivers are. And I think it's going to be. I think that this wide receiver core is good enough. I think the offensive lines will be good enough. The running back room's great, and then the defense will be at the very least very good this coming season. I think the biggest question mark going into summer and fall camp is going to be who wins that quarterback battle and how do they replace Bryce Clavin, and can they take that next step forward from good team that's going to win 9 or 10 games a year and make the second round of the playoffs or the first round of the playoffs and win region titles to a true state championship contender.
I'm going to let you go back, Craig. I do want to bring up this point, too. I think what you just said on your point, Hayden, can this team obviously win 9, 10 games and win a region championship? Can they take that next step? I think, Hayden, we seen that last year from Cass, right? We kept having questions like, can they finally get over the hump? They were a 4 seed, made some noise, and got to the quarterfinals. Like, that's kind of the trajectory I see. Like, that's what Kel has to do in order to take that next step, especially if they want to be on that level. And I'm not saying they're not on the level of Cass, but Cass finally got over the hump. Now this year they're going in with confidence. The quarterback's blowing up, got some good talent on both sides of the ball. Like, that's where kind of Kel needs to get to, I think, next season.
No, I completely agree. Right now they're being mentioned with some of the South Georgia schools and a lot of the really good 4A schools like Ware County, Warner Robins, and all these great teams that have made deep playoff runs in the past, and most of them have won state championships. So I think quarterback is the biggest question mark. And I think if they truly want to be in that conversation with those teams, they have to take that next step forward.
Certainly, quarterback, and then obviously, I mean, as Najeh said, the offensive line, because teams are going to know that putting pressure on a new quarterback is going to be huge. I think, though, with this year's Kel team, last year they had Bryce Clavin. And even if he did miss some games, he was obviously considered the leader, can do it all. I felt like with their schedule, though, and then the region, they were such clear favorites. Outside of the Cambridge game, which Cambridge lost everyone, they returned, they won that game pretty easily. I feel like this year is going to be just a completely different mindset where Kell's not going to go into it as confident maybe as they have in other seasons. But if they start to get that momentum going, I feel like a lot of different guys are going to be involved. And then who's the leader of this team? I mean, you have Tyreek, he's probably the highest recruited, but it's going to be more of just like a collective team identity, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I like about they have a really tough schedule. I think one of the problems last year was outside the Parkview game, they kind of cruised through the schedule, even against like Cambridge and GAC, some of the better teams on their schedule. They cruised through to the first round of the playoffs, and then they had a bad game against Kell, and when they got behind, they kind of started falling apart a little bit. I think this coming year, because they play such a tough schedule, and they play, I mean, Lowndes isn't the Lowndes of 4 or 5 years ago with Ja'Curry Brown and those teams that made those deep playoff runs, but they're still a 7A school that is really talented. You're going to make that trip down there. You're going to play a team that very well could beat you, and they play North Atlanta, they play Blessed Trinity. I think by the time they get to the playoffs, if they are in the right mindset, they are mentally tough enough of a team that will help strengthen this team into a team that very well may make a quarter or semifinals.
Yep. And then what do you think just of McEachern in general? They had such a great second half of the season. They could have packed it in and had a rough year in Coach Reed's first season, but I mean, I give them a lot of credit with how they closed it out.
I think they have a chance to have at least as good of a season as they had last year, if not better. I mean, we saw how they opened the season up last year against Brookwood, a team that struggled. Brookwood missed the playoffs for the first time forever. And McEachern really kind of played really bad those first few games of the season. And then I think Coach Reed is a really good coach. I think he's installing a good culture there. I think everything you see is about, you can tell how hard they work and that nothing is a given for that team. The quarterback position is a bit of a question mark, but I think both the guys in that room have the talent. Cameron Brown is your more traditional pocket passing quarterback, even though he had a 20-plus yard run. He's not a pocket passer in the sense that he can't run, but he's 6'3", 200 pounds. He has all of the gifts to be a good quarterback. And then the other quarterback that's battling with him is junior Calvin Pittman, who won the Cobb County 200 or 100-meter hurdles. I mean, he's a very good athlete. They didn't really use that in the scrimmage. I think you don't want to get your quarterback hurt, and there was already enough big hits on the quarterback because they were playing full contact even with the quarterback. But he had some really good throws at times. He probably had the better throws of the game, even though he's only 5'11", 160. But at times, Cameron Brown led the team a little better. He led 2 of the 3 scoring drives. That's going to be a big battle going into the season. But outside of that, I really think that most positions on this team are solidified as, at the very least, they have good players at those positions.
Yeah, I think McEachern has a region they can win. So real quick, it's going to be Campbell, Harrison. They're familiar with them. Hillgrove, Osborne, Paulding County, Pebblebrook, South Cobb. All teams that they've beaten, if you probably looked at their head-to-head with all those teams, heavily in their favor. But week 1 against North Gwinnett, I mean, that is a big-time matchup. They've obviously squared off before, but what do you see from McEachern's defense? Do you think they'll be able to try to slow down what I think is going to be one of the best offenses in terms of balance with North Gwinnett, Tommy Lafayette, all those playmakers?
I'm interested to see. I don't know a lot when it comes. It's hard to make if you're making those, it has to be assumptions because the question that I have is how they played really good defensively. They with the starters out there, they gave up only 1 touchdown to Kell. The question is against a really good quarterback, and a really good receiving core in North Gwinnett. How does two quarterbacks that struggled in Kell because it's early in the season, they're both only going into their junior seasons. How does that translate to a battle-tested North Gwinnett team? I think they are capable of slowing down that off. I think the defensive front's going to be a bit of a concern for me against a really good run game of North Gwinnett, just because they are a bit undersized for a 7A school. There's not that big interior defensive lineman that's 6'3", 6'4", 270, 280 pounds. But I think defensive back wise, I think there's a handful of guys on that team that are really good. They really locked down a pretty good receiving core from Kell. But that defensive front's going to be the only question mark heading into that game.
Certainly. And we know Ryan Hall is going to run the ball. And that's the problem. If you try too hard to establish a pass rush, he's just going to either make a guy miss, they'll use the read option, and it'd be a really tough matchup.
No, but when you play North Gwinnett with Ryan Hall and now Tommy Lafayette, you're going to have to play sound fundamental defense, because if you don't, it's sort of like the olden days of playing, or not even the olden days, just playing these triple option teams. If you don't do your job, you're going to get beat, because they're running these read options and these RPOs that are basically just a modern day triple option.
No doubt about it. And then obviously we appreciate your intel on the game, and obviously about both teams. Will be exciting seasons for both. We'll see both of them obviously going forward. But want to ask you a little bit, obviously big weekend for Georgia. Had a lot of prospects on campus, right? The Ryan Montgomerys of the world. I think I've seen David Sanders there for the scavenger hunt. Just what's the latest intel you're hearing in the Georgia program, and the latest after the scavenger hunt this past weekend?
Well, just in general, almost anybody was there this weekend. I think they were pushing 20 high-end prospects. I think 14 or 15 4- and 5-star recruits. I think the biggest recruit there was a high priority for Georgia, David Sanders, number 2 prospect in the country, the number 1 offensive tackle. He was there at an event that's very much it's something very unique to the University of Georgia. That's what Coach Smart said. That's what this coaching staff says. When they started this, they wanted the scavenger hunt to be fun. They wanted it to be something that nowhere else did. But besides him, players like C.J. Wiley, Zayden Walker, Travis Smith from Westlake were all there. Christian Garrett, with the defensive lineman from Prince Avenue, was there. All high priority targets for Georgia. And now that we're seeing, one of the ones that I was a little surprised wasn't there was Cortez Smith, who just cut down to his top 4. Who right now Georgia's viewed as the favorite, but I was sort of surprised to see him not there. And then another high target is USC commit Isaiah Gibson from Warner Robins. I think he's a prospect that Georgia views as very flippable from USC. One of the top edges in the country. If you go by 247, he is the top edge in the country. And I think intel is that maybe he's not as sure on that USC commitment as what was once thought.
Very interesting. Obviously, that's going to be a storyline to watch him. I know they're trying to flip Justice Terry as another. Obviously, we've talked about Travis Smith on this show. Obviously, he just announced his top 4 as well. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia. I don't know. I just get this feeling, Hayden. Obviously, this is no intel, but just have a feeling like Georgia just seems like the right fit for him, right? Good size, 6'3", 6'4", big, strong hands, tough red zone, target the stop, can go and run downfield, similar to the build of a C.J. Wiley. But what's your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think, in your eyes, that Georgia's kind of in the driver's seat for his commitment?
I think it's very much felt that Georgia right now is in the driver's seat. I mean, it's hard to tell. This isn't 5-10 years ago when recruiting was much easier to tell, because there's so many more factors today in NIL and guys transferring, guys transfer out. But I think he fills a niche that Georgia doesn't have a ton of, which is true X wide receivers and explosive X wide receivers. So I think Georgia really wants him. And I think it's a good fit for the University of Georgia.
One more, I'll throw it back to Craig. David Sanders, right? Obviously, we know that this team does a really great job recruiting tackles, recruiting big guys, and bringing them into the program. Obviously, more recently, Daniel Calhoun, we've seen Bo Hughley. But what do you think of them? Obviously, I've been hearing through the grapevine that obviously he's high on Georgia. I know he likes Clemson as well. But what do you think of the prospects of them potentially landing him and kind of that fit there for their program, landing up one of the best linemen in the country?
Um, I think right now it's very much a question mark where he's going to go. I think it's his recruitment is wide open. I think it's going to be very much by just what his top schools are, where I can go get developed and go to the NFL. And I think if he is looking at that, which from what I've heard he very much is, Georgia's up there has to be one of your top options because the last 2 years they've put both the 5-star prospects that they've had at tackle into the NFL, and this coming year they have, while they're not tackles, interior offensive linemen and Dylan Fairchild, Michael Morris, and a few others that are expected to be high round draft picks next year from the interior offensive line. And then Ernest Green is viewed by many as possibly being the next Georgia offensive tackle to be drafted in the first round. I think you have to look at Georgia as one of his top options.
Yep, and one of the guys that was there also at the scavenger hunt, speaking of the offensive line, Mason Short, and he's obviously already locked in. He's one of the interior linemen you're talking about. So maybe, that duo had some conversations. But, Mason Short, he's obviously completely locked in, and I'm really happy about that. Here's a guy, though, before we move on. I want to ask you, what are your thoughts about Christian Garrett from Prince Avenue Christian? I saw that he has scheduled his announcement for July 20th, so we still have a lot of time, but he's a guy that I'm going to be honest, has gone under the radar, but he is obviously a huge playmaker. He's right down the road in Bogart at Prince Ave. What do you think his chances are?
I think one of the things that about Christian Garrett is the reason he's kind of gone under the radar is in the state of Georgia this year, this is a loaded defensive tackle class. 2 5-star guys, a bunch of other high 4-star guys. So it's hard to stand out when you're looking at being, some of the best defensive linemen in the country. I think Georgia, when Justice Terry committed to flip to USC, I think Georgia really started recruiting Christian Garrett hard. If he goes to Georgia, that's another question. Being right next to it, I think helps, but I don't think it's as important being right outside Athens as it was before the NIL era, before all this, just because there's so much more that goes into it. But when you look at him as a prospect, he's really gone from when he was younger, he was in that 250, 260 range, and he's really put on a lot of weight in the past year. And it's all good weight. He's now up to 280, 290. I think he's really turned himself into a 3-front defensive end or a 4-front defensive tackle, which I think really helps him as a prospect because now he is a true defensive tackle.
And guess what? We will get to see him week 1 against
we
West
will.
Versailles. Here's what's interesting about him. No, continue real quick.
That's a game I'm really looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to how Prince Ave faces the much bigger school in West Versailles.
Yeah, and that's interesting. You're talking about the weight he's put on. So last year, this was December of 2022, he said he was at 6'4", 255. I'm looking at his profile. He says he has an 83-inch wingspan. That is a 6'10" wingspan. So, him on the defensive line, if he's just like setting the edge, good luck getting around him. 6'10" wingspan, that big, 6'4". I think you're right about with Justice Terry kind of hinting he might go somewhere else. I think Christian might be a priority, but he will announce on July 20th.
Yeah, and then with a wingspan like that, it allows him to play a more outside defensive tackle because when you're that long, I mean, that's basketball player level wingspan compared to your height. It's really hard for the offensive tackles to get into your chest to really stop your momentum on pass rushes, especially with how fast and how athletic he is.
Yeah, cannot wait to see him. 3.9 GPA. Obviously, they've got some good connections with that school. But that's it. If Najeh's got anything.
Last one, we'll let you get out of here. Obviously, we were talking about the Georgia program and everything. We just talked about recruiting. Obviously, we didn't have this on our list, but who do you think is maybe? I mean, we're seeing guys like Samari Smoke Matthews getting offers. We're seeing guys, obviously, more recently picking up offers from Georgia. But who do you think is maybe an underrated guy that, maybe is flying under the radar that could potentially maybe nab an offer from Georgia or could surprise a lot of people and end up committing to Georgia that they may not expect. Kind of similar to Stephon Shivers out of Humboldt, Tennessee. We didn't really expect that, but that ended up happening. Do you see maybe any guys happening?
There's a cornerback from Warner Robins. What's his name?
Rashawn Dinkins.
Rashawn Dinkins. He holds a Georgia offer, I believe. He was at the scavenger hunt this weekend. I really think that he is one of those 3-star guys that, there's a lot. It's one of those things of a 3-star recruit is not a bad recruit. In fact, he's an elite recruit. But I think as fans, we sit there and we think, oh, if he's not a 4 or 5-star, he's not a good player. When in fact, lots of times those 3-star players end up being great players, but it's just that there's something about them. A lot of times it's that they're extremely raw recruits, that they don't have the skill set. They haven't developed those skills to be great yet, but they have all the talent to be great. And I feel like that's kind of where he sits as a player.
And real quick to just illustrate your point even more and put it up bigger, go look at recently in the NFL draft, right, with Quavion Mitchell going to Philly, 3-star recruit, went to a smaller school. Obviously, Georgia's a way bigger school, but same thing to your point. Wasn't a heavily recruited guy, played really good in college, and then look what he became.
Yeah, I think especially the cornerback position, it's so much if you have the physical gifts to play it, and you put in the work ethic to learn the skill set with the high end development, the high end weight rooms, and the high end dietary plans of a major university like the University of Georgia. Players like that can be great.
No doubt. Well, Hayden, we want to say thank you so much, man. I hope you are ready because these next couple of months are going to be hectic, especially with recruiting and people committing and offers. So we're going to be depending on you for the latest in Georgia intel, man, and just saying you're doing a great job, and we appreciate it.
I'm excited, guys.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. There goes Hayden. So we're going to bring on the next one, Max, in a moment. But what do you think, man? Obviously, Rashawn's one of those guys, and we just talked about it with Hayden, just God, I might be flying on the radar, but then boom, Georgia offer. And then next thing you know.
Yeah, with him, so 5'10", 180. He's got cornerback size. His sophomore year, he was at safety, had 8 picks, helped them win the state title. Go to the state championship game. But I think the reason he's a 3-star is he's kind of played multiple spots defensively, but that's also a positive. Before we get Max on, anything from Georgia Tech you got?
Obviously we talked about Cortez Smith, him being obviously announcing in the top 4. Another player that you just mentioned, Christian Garrett, obviously has Georgia Tech in his top 8, I believe. But nothing too crazy at the moment. From what I'm hearing, I know OVs are coming up for May 31st, so I'm gonna try to get some intel on that. It's about 10 days from now. Figure out the guys that are going, maybe get a couple talks with them. But that is the latest. Obviously, they got Justin Hassenhuddle from Raymond Gap, Andre Fuller, and then who's the other third recruit? Oh, Grady Adamson from Deer Creek. So those are the 3 now. Currently a top 50 class according to On3 Sports, but still very early. I think they got to really hit it though with their OVs.
Nice.
Yes, sir. All right. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and bring on the Alabama program. What's going on, Max?
How we doing, guys? Good to see y'all.
Doing good, man. How's your weekend? You look refreshed.
Look refreshed. Got a haircut. Good haircut. It's a good weekend. How about y'all? Good stuff?
Yeah, man. It was good. Can't complain. It's good to get a little refresher. And, man, I feel like now we're getting into the heat. feel like we're getting to the heat of the season. Max's preseason, I feel like. I know we finna conclude with obviously summer, and the 7-on-7 is about to get big, obviously. So I feel like we right in the heat of it, which is crazy to think.
And it's about to start heating up soon with some 7-on-7s, like you said. Yeah, it should be very exciting very soon. For sure.
No doubt about it. Speaking of, your Alabama Crimson Tide have been landing some guys. So I want to show you this clip too, Craig, and then I want to get your reaction on what you think. You just wrote up a story on him, actually, Max. But let's get Craig's thoughts on this as well. I don't think he'd seen the clip. Let me pull it up.
I have not.
That is a photo. That is not it either. There it is. All right, as soon as it loads. Okay, one sec, y'all. Let's share that screen. Okay, how does it look on y'all? It looks good. Max, can you see it? I think it can. All right. Let's go ahead and roll. One more time. So, let me X out. Obviously, that is Dorian Barney. Were you able to see that, Max? Can you hear him? Max, were you able to see that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. I'm gonna let Craig react, and then I want to get your reaction. We're about to talk about him, where he just recently committed to. But what's your thoughts?
I think he looks tall. You saw that pass breakup right there to try to go over the top, and he's got phenomenal size. Some other clips, he's able to play off. He's able to press, but when he's playing off, he's got that closing speed. He can jump a route, but then it looks like he's really great just covering the deep ball.
What's your thoughts, Max?
Yeah, I agree. Craig, I agree. He's got good size and good combination of size and speed. He stands at 6'1", 170. Najeh, when you showed me that clip the first time earlier today, I thought he was the receiver because it looked like he was just running the routes for them. It looked like he already knew what was going on. But yeah, I think it was a great pickup for Alabama. I think playing in an elite high school football, where high school football is already so elite, and he's already going to be very experienced playing against some of the top talent in the country by playing in Georgia. I think Barney will be a great addition to Alabama's defensive back room for sure.
No doubt. Actually, there's one more clip I want to show y'all. And I want to go to your point with just real quick too, Max. I think what's interesting is for Barney, this is great, right? Because he has 2 more years of varsity play. And what's interesting is these young guys we keep talking about with Bama, the Mbakwe's, the young guys, they're going to be juniors by the time he gets in.
Right.
So they could be on track to go to the NFL. They might last a couple of seasons. And I think this bodes well for him, especially if they can keep his recruitment, being able to come in early and contribute to what we've been seeing in recent years, right? Obviously, Mbakwe this year, some of those young DBs. The year before that, Caleb Downs is a true freshman at a safety spot. So I think that bodes well for him as well.
For sure. I definitely think, especially this year with there being such a young defensive back room, I think those guys will be playing. But I think this will be a good testament as to say what will be coming when Barney does step on campus in 2 years. I know he still has 2 years left of high school, but I just think this year will be a good how do I put it? It could be a good mark just for him to see like how freshmen will be playing early, especially at the cornerback position, and then how much playing time they will get this season.
No doubt about it. And then I want you guys to see this clip. Obviously, guy I'm really I know him very well. But he got a chance to see him in the spring game, and this is against CJ Wiley. So I thought this was impressive as well, because these are the type of guys he's going to be going up against. So definitely wanted to show this clip, obviously, for you guys.
Here, Phenom athlete of the week, 1 of 2. Now let's check in and see what he did to get the job done. Immaculate break on the ball against 4-star CJ Wiley, man. Now, he did commit to Alabama this past week, but if you look to your right, we will see South Carolina's wide receiver coach Mike Freer. Check him out like, man, this boy can play. On to the next. Now, we did award him.
All right, hold on. I got to see. That clip was short. I wanted you guys to see, like, him break on that ball. Let me see. I think he had a better clip. 1 sec, y'all. Forgive me. So I remember him sharing it. Unless he deleted it. I think so. Yeah, because I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see it. Oh, well, maybe I can try this one. He does have 2 accounts. Hold on, y'all. Here it is. All right, I got it. Here you go. I want y'all to see this real quick. Did it on this other account. You as well, Max. All right, so look at this PBU right here, y'all.
Hey, ball!
Ooh.
Pass intended for number 4, C.J. Wiley. Broken up nicely.
I mean, y'all
By
see
number 2, Dorian.
obviously how massive, Wiley is, but for him, the ability of him to close on that ball, I thought was top tier, Craig.
Yeah,
And he
was
torched
right there.
Yeah, we talked about everybody else. He torched the rest of the DBs. But it seemed like when Barney was against him, it was going neck and neck to me.
Yeah, and CJ is one of the guys we always talk about how he's just always able to get open. I think with that play, it's like he understood the situation, knew the down and distance was right there, wasn't going to get fooled. I like that his name is DB, the initials. That's pretty cool. And then another thing, it's like he transfers to Peachtree Ridge. He gets to play as a freshman at ELCA. Now he's already committed. So, I mean, they must really be high on him. And so I think, yeah, he's obviously got all the tools, but that is a big commitment for him. And I think it's huge going into his junior year.
No doubt. Max, I'm going to throw it to you and we'll move on to the next DB they got. What was the latest? 'Cause I know you wrote a story on it. What was the intel that you were able to get? Obviously, those are the clips we reacted to, but what's the latest intel that you heard about, obviously, him that you mentioned in your story?
Well, he is over the weekend he's the second commit in the 2026 class, and he's the second DB. They got Jamarian Gordon, who I think we're just about to talk about, on Saturday, and then Dorian Barney committed on Sunday. But yeah, just Barney, he's 6'1", 170 pounds with great size and speed. And I think it's kind of Alabama resetting the precedent as they have in the years past with new coaching staff. I just think it's with Coach Maurice Linguist, who they pulled from Buffalo. I think it's starting there, and I think it's how he will be able to develop the young players and to actually put them on the field. And I just think from what he's seen in practice and from what his visits have probably seen already, with what he's seen with the freshmen that are already there and how coach is developing them thus far, I think he probably liked what he saw, and from there it was an easy fit.
No doubt. All right, let's move on to Jamarian Gordon, who's also a dog. I've seen him multiple times so far as well this summer, Max. But kid, that is safety spot. I mean, hey, you watch his film, he's just different. So talk about that one. That was obviously the first commit of the weekend, but another major big one in the 26 class. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, a 3-star recruit out of Jackson, Alabama. He was the first commitment in the 2026 class, so starting it off strong there. He's the number 13 player in Alabama and the number 30 safety in the class. I just think it was another good commitment and just another guy with great size and great speed who will probably make a difference when he comes to Alabama.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I really like how rangy he is as a safety and how he closes on the ball, and he's a hard hitter as well. So I think another great addition, man. And obviously, as we just talked about with the DBs, got 2 more years, so he can easily come in there and be along with Barney, those kind of key cornerstone pieces for the next kind of wave of the regime of obviously Kalen DeBoer.
For sure. Definitely agree.
Yes, sir. All right. So what's else is the latest you're hearing around kind of similar question we asked Hayden, just around the program of Alabama guys they're talking to know. Obviously, guys are nailing down their top. Obviously, Travis Smith is in that conversation for Bama, but who are some other guys we should watch for that maybe is real high on Bama that could potentially go there?
I was going to say Travis Smith, but I think one that we haven't really talked about is Caleb Cunningham. And shout out Brett Greenberg, 247 Sports, with the story. But Caleb Cunningham is the number 3 wide receiver in the class of 2025 from Mississippi. I think Bama's been highly on him, and I think our wide receivers coach, Jamarcus Shepard, has been very highly on him. And he's been able to produce NFL talent in the recent years. So I think we're starting there with him, and I think they're very high on him. And I think he's coming back to Alabama in June. I know he visited Alabama in March. But I think he's coming back mid-June just for another practice, just to see what's going on there. But they're very high on Cunningham as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, that wasn't even a name I thought of, to be honest with you, Max. So obviously that's going to be crucial as well to watch
What did
for
Brett
them.
say about him?
I couldn't see most of the story. He just said one of the main things that I saw in there was that Shepard's pulling out all the stops for him, and they would really like to have him there in Tuscaloosa.
It looks like he's the #1 player in Mississippi, so right across the
Mhm.
border.
Yep. And I think I saw he was leaning on 247 Sports. I believe it was Mississippi State and Ole Miss kind of going back and forth, but you never know what can happen, especially with another year left of his recruitment probably. A lot can change.
Interesting. Wow, they're saying he averaged 18.4 points per game in basketball last year, 9 rebounds, state champion in the triple jump, and they said it's all about his ability after the catch. So my guess is he's just a true playmaker.
And just another guy, he's at 6'1", 190, so he's kind of already there. He was there with the height, but then in terms of the weight, it seems like he's there with another good blend of size and speed. But yeah, I think it would be exciting for him to get back into Tuscaloosa and to see how things are going when they have more of a system down in place after spring ball. But yeah, that's definitely another high target on their list.
Yeah, another thing, Gabe Brooks says unstoppable in red zone situations. That's a pretty high compliment. It's kind of important in the game. Wow. So yeah, that is definitely a player we will be watching for.
For sure.
Caleb Cunningham.
And I believe he's the #2 receiver in the nation, and I think he's the 12th best player in the class of 2025, according to 247. So yeah, it would be a huge get for Alabama.
Big time. Yeah, so no scheduled announcement, but when was his last visit to campus? You said that was recently?
It was in March, and then he's going back June 21st.
That's right. Okay.
Got you. Well, I think that does it for the recruiting for the most part. A couple more, we'll let you go. Obviously, the NCAA trailer released this past week. So just what were your thoughts? Obviously, I want to get Craig's reaction to if he was able to see it. But what's your thoughts on that, man? Official release is July 19th. It's right around the corner. Obviously, I talked about on my show last week, the 150 bundle. I like getting both Madden and being able to get NCAA. I think is pretty dope. But what's just your thoughts about just the release, man, and it almost here?
I mean, from that trailer alone, you could really tell the amount of detail that was put into that game and the amount of time they've spent getting every different school, every different tradition, every little thing, every minute detail. They really got everything down. And just from that trailer, there's so much excitement from there. And I think it got everybody very excited. I think I will probably just be getting the regular game just because I don't know if I need all the rest of this stuff. But I very inclined to get the other ones just to play it early. I think it's on the 16th. I think it comes out if you pre-order it. So I'm really leaning toward it. I'm thinking about it. It'd be very cool. But it's gonna be like it's gonna almost feel like a national holiday almost. It'd be a big day.
Yeah, exactly, and we already know who you use as soon as you get the steaks.
Yeah, that's pretty simple.
Bring it into the office. Let's hook it up on the TV.
I'll have to, Craig. We'll have to get it going. Bama, Georgia, on the big screen.
Yeah.
Oh man, them debates gonna be so funny during the year, bro.
It's gonna be so funny.
I think it's
gonna be great.
I think it's great. The game's back. It's just a good way for obviously fans to play, but the players are going to be using it in downtime. It's just going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, the trailer was sick.
I think the players will be all over it. I think they're as excited as anyone just to be in the game as well. I mean, there were some funny reactions from that, but I think it's just cool because this season, especially with the 12-team playoff, it feels like a whole different type of game. It feels like a whole different sport almost with the 12-team playoff, different conferences, and then you throw in this game as well on top of it. It's just like something completely new we haven't seen in the past 10 years.
No doubt. What's your thoughts on the cover with Travis Hunter being on there, Quinn Edwards, and obviously Donovan Edwards? You think they got that part right?
I think it's right. I think they did a good job. I think it's fine. I think Quinn Ewers and Travis Hunter makes sense, and I think they had to throw the national champion in there, some sort of representation from Michigan in there somewhere, and Donovan Edwards isn't a bad answer. So I like the deluxe. The deluxe one's very cool as well. I think that's a great idea. Them having them all come out of the tunnel like that. That was very cool. Yep.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, definitely. As I said it on the show, man. If you got a girl or you got a girlfriend, good luck this summer with the boys because they not getting off the game, man. It's gonna be similar to kind of that. I don't know if you remember Max that hoorah with kind of Fortnite. Like, good luck.
Oh yeah.
I mean, guys are not gonna be. They're gonna be hours on end playing that type of game, especially like the kids. Like, and they don't understand, Max. Like, we've been without this game for 10 years. So imagine some of these adults. So like, yeah, I mean, good luck. I tell all ladies this summer, good luck.
Growing up with 3 other brothers, I mean, we would be playing all the time and we would be fighting over this game and we would be continually playing whatever random teams we were, whether it wasn't just Alabama or someone else, always be fighting over it, always be trying to play it, get as much hours as we could with it. But it would be so exciting when it comes back out.
Yeah, that's what made it special though, because you didn't always use the marquee teams. You're using like, back in the day, like a Boise State, or using like a Western Colorado or something, and then beating your brother who's using a Miami. You're like, yo, how did you beat me? Hey, bro,
exactly. My brothers used to play. It was like Texas Tech versus Oregon, and they would play that all the time. They would be running that same matchup, and Oregon would have Mariota and DeAnthony Thomas, and then sometimes Texas Tech. I can't even think of a player for Texas Tech right now, but yeah, it would just be random different teams, and then it would be fights after every time. You could count on it.
No doubt about it. But
there'll definitely be fights, man. Like
definitely.
When you start to lose and the guy turns the console off, yeah.
For sure. It's going to shut it off immediately. Very heated games.
No doubt about it. Well, Max, I want to say appreciate you for coming on, man. I think that's all we got for today. Obviously, keep us updated. We know, as we were just saying with Hayden, it's going to be a busy next couple of months, especially with recruiting and everything, and June being one of those very, very hotbed months. So will be a lot of fun to watch it and see what happens, and we appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. Yes, sir. All right, guys, there goes Max. So that is our college segment. We talked about the NCAA trailer. And obviously that's the latest news. We'll keep you guys updated on Under Look every single Tuesday, streaming at noon Eastern on YouTube and Twitch. So make sure you check us out. We did throw up an Instagram post on the story. We didn't see any questions, but if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, definitely hit that on the Instagram at ScoreATL, Score Atlanta, and we'll address it on the show. But we're going to conclude with our final segment, and that's the NFL. Reacting to some of the schedule releases. I'll start with you, Craig. Any games that kind of caught your eye, obviously, or teams that are playing really difficult schedules?
I saw the Cleveland Browns, I think, were voted the toughest. So, I mean, that obviously makes sense. AFC North, probably the deepest. I think just looking at the schedule, though, a team that has underachieved, but some people think that they're going to underachieve. I'm just interested in the Chargers this year. I think they have a very intriguing schedule. Some big-time matchups, but we got some new excitement with the head coach, Coach Harbaugh, and I actually think they're going to be a little more dangerous this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, drafted lads, so that's going to be interesting to watch who's going to kind of be the big wide receiver one this year, who's going to step up big for him. But, yeah, I think with Harbaugh coming in and obviously going to have the Harbaugh Bowl when they play the Ravens this year, which will be another entertaining matchup to watch. I'm sure that'll be a big primetime one. But, yeah, I agree. I can't wait to see what they're able to do. And back to your point on Cleveland, another interesting team, Baltimore, is going to play 10 playoff teams from last year. So their schedule is pretty difficult as well. Obviously, lose a lot of their pieces on the offensive line, 3 guys. So we'll be replacing that. They have said that Lamar has slimmed down to 205 now compared to 225 about a year or so ago. So he's been slimming down. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Ravens can do this year.
Yes, it is. And, gosh, I had this pulled up. What was interesting about just the breakdown was some of the stretches that certain teams have. I'll try to find a sec, but it was like no playoff team 6 games in a row, and then it's just like the toughest part of their schedule. Let's see. There's some notable games. Let's see. We got week 1, obviously Ravens at Chiefs. Another thing I saw, they're making predictions, which I think this might be true, but they're saying like teams like the Chiefs might end up having a better road record than home record. That would have been unheard of until I think last season. They did lose a bunch at home. Some of their easier trips, no offense to those teams, will be on the road this year. The Falcons do technically have the easiest schedule from what I saw, which was interesting. Um, yeah, obviously the big divisional games. I think the Green Bay Packers this year. It's a team that everyone needs to be watching with Jordan Love.
So is that one of your sleepers?
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess we go ahead to that part.
Yeah.
NFL sleepers and contenders. They kind of segue us in there. I actually have them as a contender this year, Craig. I think they're going to be a great team. I think they build off that deep playoff run, and I think they make some noise. You could make the argument they could have been easily in the NFC Championship game if they didn't, kind of, blow it a little bit. But yeah, my contenders real quick: Packers, 49ers, obviously, Eagles, Lions. AFC side, I got to go Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals. Houston, I want to see another year before I make it to the contender. And my sleepers are Jags, Steelers, Jets.
Contenders this year. Oh, man. NFC, I'm going to go 49ers, Lions, and the Packers. I think if anyone else. Put the Eagles in there. But I think
talent.
those three teams. Then on the AFC side, obviously the Chiefs, always going to give the Bengals love. And then I think the Houston Texans are a sleeper.
Can respect that. What do you think of, obviously, real quick? This is
and the Las Vegas Raiders.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Sleeper. Okay. I like that one. What do you think of these contracts, though? I heard like Tua is not going to re-sign unless he gets $50 million a year. I heard that's the price that Trevor Lawrence wants as well in his contract negotiation. What do you think of those kind of inflated numbers for those quarterbacks? Do you think they're worthy? Do you think they're deserving?
I'm old school in only the sense that I feel like at the quarterback position specifically, you have to ask for that type of money after you've had your big season. I think it's too just you look at how many talented quarterbacks there are now. It's like to get to that elite conversation where you can really have all the leverage in that negotiation. You either have to be in the MVP conversation, you have to make a deep playoff run, or you have to be healthy multiple seasons in a row. It's just tough. I mean, it's worthy, but I mean, it made sense when Lamar wanted his money. Obviously, some quarterbacks, it's just the way it is. They'll get paid no matter what. But I like to see it happen after a big year. I like when they're rewarded for making that big run.
I respect that. I was just about to ask you, what would be your criteria? But you just answered it. Like MVP conversation, making a deep playoff run, and being healthy for multiple seasons. I 100% agree. I feel like, obviously I'm very high on Trevor. I think he's going to have another great year. Everybody was kind of down on him to say they don't deserve it. But I think, guys, you got to remember he did come back from 27-0 and took them to the divisional round. Obviously, the Chiefs ended up winning that game, but they kept it close early on. So I feel like he deserves that money more than Tua, in my opinion. I just feel like Tua has not been healthy, hasn't had the best numbers, and when it gets to playoffs, they don't go deep. So to me, I feel like Trevor, out of those slew of quarterbacks, is definitely more deserving.
Yeah, and I mean, hasn't the record been pretty decent when he has been out? Obviously, he's a difference maker, but
well, they said his record is like 17-16 as a starter. So that's where guys are kind of going. But I'm like, you've been a perennial, for the most part, playoff team. Last year, it kind of fell apart, but I mean, he's gotten further, I think, to me. Made more of an impact, in my opinion. I think Miami's more so. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, good running game, great coordinator. I feel like Trevor's have to do more to kind of uplift his team. Defense is good, but with the playmakers, I feel like he's having to do more, in my opinion.
For sure. Yeah, no doubt there.
Yeah.
But no, Trevor's an interesting guy because I'm still not 100% sold on him. But, I mean, obviously, I think he's a great quarterback, been covering him forever. But, I mean, even in that comeback win you're talking about, he played absolutely horrible in that first half and had to save himself. A lot of people were deleting tweets in that game. Oh, man, the Jags are trash. And then look what happened. But he's still pretty young, but it's been a tough situation for him. We will see, though. I think with the Texans coming into that division hot, the Colts are always going to be hovering around that 500. And then we'll see what the Titans do. But, I mean, it's a pretty favorable division for him.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And last topic, and we'll conclude the show with this. maybe just underrated storyline. Obviously, we've talked about players, we've talked about teams, but maybe something that's underrated, flying on the radar that we should watch for in your eyes, Craig, this upcoming season.
Oh man, well isn't Will over there a Jets fan? I think the Jets are an interesting team for me. It's like, what are they doing here? Like, is this just going to be another year where they fall off at the end?
Mm.
Yeah,
They got pieces though.
They do.
They got it. Got Garrett Wilson coming back. You got some pretty good pieces in the draft. Sauce Gardner's back there. You got Hassan Reddick in the trade. So I mean, you got to play their pieces to be successful.
Like the Jets, who's another team that you think like is coming off a bad season where it's like this kind of is a make or break year for them?
Good question, Craig. Make or break season. Let's see. Let me think a little bit.
Because it's not going to be like the Saints or Panthers. You kind of know what they're trying to do to get back on top.
I got a good one for you, even though I got them as a contender. Make or break season, Philadelphia Eagles.
That is a good one.
If they do the same thing they did last year under Nick Sirianni, he's gone. If they don't go at least to an NFC Championship game, I think you can see that kind of rise again because so much expectations. You go and get Saquon Barkley. You do really good in the draft, in my opinion. You get some good pieces. Will Shipley, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Cooper DeJean, Quavion Mitchell, right? You already signed your quarterback, Craig. Think about this. To that massive deal. You went and re-signed A.J. Brown, got his almost $100 million. You just re-signed Devontae Smith. So, and then you also brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So to me, like this is a year like I'm gonna say they have to win it all for it to be successful, but they definitely have to make a deep playoff run.
Yep. No, I would agree with that. I think the NFC is gonna be more fun this year for sure.
Think so?
Yeah, I think with what Detroit did last year, that was awesome. I think they're gonna be ready to go this year. I think they are a contender. That division will be tougher. See what Minnesota's able to do. I think that was the team I was thinking of. They had a 6-game stretch, no playoff teams. Then it's all tough games after that. So they have a chance to stay relevant late into the season. NFC South will be interesting, a lot of new pieces. But I don't know. I like the NFC North. I think that Packers Lions game is going to be the real deal.
No doubt. Last thing, my surprise team is the Rams next year. The Rams. Watch out for the Rams. But that's all we got for today. Please tune in to another episode of the Underrated Overlook podcast. We will see